podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Dragon's Lair.
Hello and welcome to the Dragon's Lair podcast, your home all things Dragons RFC and rugby in the region. I'm Jamie and joining me as always is Gavin Thomas. How are we doing, Gav?
I'm well, Jamie, I'm well. I think this week I came to a kind of an existential moment in my life. So I couldn't watch the game live on Saturday because I was running cup finals for the RFU, for Sussex RFU. Right. So I went home, even though I knew the result, I went home and I watched the game, knowing the result, knowing what you had said to me about the game. And there was about 60 minutes of the game going, I don't understand why I do this to myself sometimes.
Yeah, that was a video nasty, wasn't it, for you to catch up on? Oh, dear. You can find us on platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and the Sports Social Network. And if you like what we do, please subscribe, share with your Dragons mates, and leave us a good review, as it all helps to grow the pod. Right, Gav, we'll talk about that disappointing Benetton performance a bit later. But first, the Dragons welcome Connacht to Rugby Parade on Saturday night. And to help us preview that game, we have a Connacht fan who's based in Dublin. He's co-host of the Prirate Rugby podcast, and he's an expert on rugby media rights. Please welcome Enda to the pod. How are you doing, Enda? Are you okay?
All good, lads. Thanks a million for having me on.
No problem.
No problem. Thank you very much for joining us. So, Enda, you run the rugby broadcast account on X, formerly known as Twitter. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and where your interest started in rugby media rights and broadcasting?
Yeah, so I guess that started from my time working for Sky. So I worked for Sky for a number of years in a number of different roles, but not necessarily in the broadcasting space, but in mainly in compliance, to be honest, which is my current profession. But it just got me thinking, it got me really interested in broadcast rights. And one thing I definitely noticed, especially from an Irish perspective, and I'm sure we'll get onto it, is just how many different platforms rugby is on and how frustrating that experience can be. Like at the time I was working in Sky, like Premier Sports was broadcasting the URC in the UK, and it didn't have rights to broadcast the Irish provinces and stuff, but yet Premier Sports was active in Ireland broadcasting soccer and things. So it was always quite confusing for a lot of people and for myself as well. So that's what kind of got me interested, just knowing about the industry and getting a bit of inside knowledge, I guess, and a bit of upfront information. And then I just got a bit obsessed then. And then I did find myself, like a lot of people, every weekend trying to figure out and navigate where the hell the games were on and who was broadcasting them. So I just decided to start making things a bit more straightforward for fans. And for myself, selfishly, to be honest, making out a little guide for the weekend. And one thing I noticed as well was that even when there are sites out there and platforms, but you'll find a lot of inaccuracies, and you'll even find I love the URC, I'm a big fan, but even on their website, like for example, every weekend you'll see that every single fixture is down as being broadcast from Premier Sports in Ireland, but that's not the case. That actually is deferred coverage. It's not just live coverage. And also Premier Sports have a separate entity in Asia as well where they show games. So even that, even on the URC's own website, I think it can be sometimes confusing, especially for new fans. So I guess that's where the interest came from. And then the more I just kind of got into it, the more I kind of found it more interesting now. So I love, today, there was an announcement by a TV5 Monde, who was basically a French broadcaster, and they broadcast top 14 games in Ireland and the UK every season, and people don't really know about it. And then I reached out to their social media team. I remember last season when I found out they were broadcasting a couple of games, and I got some more information off them. And then they said, "Oh, look, we'll be in touch next season." And then lo and behold, they messaged me today and said, "Hey, we're about to put out this tweet. We're going to be showing 10 games. Do you want to talk about it, or do you want to get something out there?" So I just thought things like that just interest me. And I think it's just good for fans. There's been a huge reaction to that tweet as well, because people want to watch rugby and they want to watch, especially top 14. Now, there is a caveat; it is going to be with French commentary in that, but still, I think it's great that we'll still have access to it. And some people will actually probably potentially maybe favor that commentary over some controversial commentators and stuff. I don't know. But yeah, it's things like that's kind of grown my interest, and then yeah, it's kind of just grown some legs as well, where some pretty prominent accounts have interacted with me, and they've said, well, like I remember listening to the Jim Hamilton. I know he does a pod called The Big Jim Show, and he like literally referenced a very passing comment to the page, and I just thought that was cool. So it kind of gives you that bit of, I don't know, bit of a bump, and realizing what you're doing is actually kind of helping fans and even like former players and massive media people like Jim Hamilton. So that's in a roundabout way. That's how I kind of got into it, and yeah, just find it really interesting. And it just seems to be a really growing space, and it's just getting more and more complicated. And also as well, just from having worked in Sky, that for me, there's this narrative out there that streaming is the future, that an Amazon's going to come in, or a DAZN, one of these major streamers, or Netflix, and take over the broadcasting space. And as you guys, I'm sure, are aware, like it hasn't been the case. It's not materializing. Guess what? No. The Skies of this world, the free-to-air broadcasters, they're here to stay. Well, look, we can chat through that, but that's why I set up the page, and yeah, that's why I'm here, I guess.
Excellent, very interesting. So, in terms of broadcasters, then, who do you think does rugby the best? Is there any particular coverage that stands out for you? Like, for example, I think personally, I think TNT are pretty good, and let's be honest, they do hype up the English Premiership, don't they? They really know how to hype up that product. But there's a couple of pundits on there that's a little bit, Austin Healey, when he's
yeah, I'm going to say
what I was going to say was, when Austin Healey's not being a tit, he's actually quite insightful. So I'm just wondering, is there any particular coverage that you enjoy watching?
You guys, I'm sure you guys have noticed that TG Caher, I know you can't get access to it because you're in the UK, but it's
I'm aware of that,
yeah, they're free-to-air broadcaster, and they show a lot of rugby. Like, they're showing the AIL finals this coming weekend, and they're a really good broadcaster because they put a lot of effort into their actual show, like their pre-game and their post-game, and their even like their mid-game and everything. They try to innovate, and even this past weekend they had an interview immediately after the Connacht game with the referee, and apparently it's a world first. Like, this isn't a thing that occurs, and again, it's just a decently funded free-to-air broadcaster in the Irish language, not that popular, but you've got loads of people tuning in week in, week out because of their coverage, and because they just try to be a bit different. And it's all through Irish. And now they do kind of, during the broadcast, they do have, in-game interviews with Marcus Horan, former Munster player, and he always communicates in English. So I think people like that as well. But I think they're just an example of a free-to-air broadcaster just doing things right. And if you look at the stats from last year as well, like, I know the URC had incredible viewing figures last season, and Connacht were the 5th most watched team. And I think one of the reasons for that is because a hell of a lot of Connacht games are on TG Caher, and they do a really good job. And let's face it, obviously, because it's a free-to-air broadcast as well, so a lot of people, they get a lot of casual fans. But I think for me, they're kind of a niche kind of broadcast that I think a lot of hipster rugby people would like in Ireland, I would say. But they do a good job. But I think I'd agree with you as well. TNT do a great job.
S4C do a similar job in Wales as well, and their coverage of rugby is good, but it's broader than the regions. So they show the Welsh Premiership, they show their schools games, the Welsh Colleges Cup, and so you do get to see more rugby through S4C as well. So I think there is that out there, isn't there? There are. And BBC Alba in Scotland as well. They have a lot of good coverage of rugby. On the iPlayer, you can find their coverage of the Melrose Sevens and stuff like that. So
yeah, and I think that's key as well to the like, if you look at going back to the URC's viewing figures from last season, I think one of the reasons they're so high as well in Ireland, the URC has a really good balance in terms of, like, every single Connacht, Munster, and Leinster game is available free to air, like, week in, week out. Not all Ulster games, but the majority of Ulster games as well are covered. So I think, those broadcasters put a lot of effort into those games that they do get, which I think is interesting. But I do like TNT as well. And I think it's important. Like, a lot of people might get annoyed with that hype and stuff. And, like, if you watch the Prem, I'd say and you watch the coverage of TNT Sports, I'd say you would believe that 100% is the best thing since, like, sliced bread. And I love that. I like the way they put a lot of effort into their broadcast and into their commentators, and they try to be a bit different. I just hate sometimes when you're watching a game and coverage starts 5 minutes beforehand. You want that hype.
I think part of the issue with the Prem coverage on TNT is literally if you were a casual viewer and that was your first thing, you would genuinely think that England win every World Cup, that Northampton or someone wins every European Cup, and the Six Nations is a waste of time, and England might as well put their fifth team out because it's not just one-eyed; it is no-eyed at all at times, and even within the coverage of that, there's a huge kind of bias towards the bigger clubs. If I was a Newcastle fan watching the Prem coverage on TNT, well, it's a bit like being a Dragons fan, really, just in terms of the level of coverage you get. So, Enda, you've worked in TV, but like you said, non-broadcasting, but in TV in itself, and you watch a lot of rugby on TV, as we do. I won't talk about the individual, but what do you think makes a good pundit? Because there are good pundits out there, and there's less good ones as well.
I think for me, a good pundit is an honest one, and I think a good pundit as well is not. I don't think a good pundit has to be a former player, particularly a player who is potentially recently retired, because it just turns out then that they might be afraid to say something to upset their friends who are still in those changing rooms. Now again, it's nothing against like some players do it really well, and some players just who have recently retired don't care what they say. But you can I sometimes feel like a lot of recent pundits just seem to be former players, and the reason they're pundits is because they played the game professionally, so therefore they're experts. And I find that frustrating at times as well, because I think there are some journalists out there who are absolutely brilliant, or people who didn't play the game who do a really good job. So I think for me, just honesty and maybe not having that connection, like not being afraid to say something. Like I think Austin Healy, we've touched on him. I think he is a good commentator. I think the only thing I don't enjoy about his broadcast, and particularly from a new fan's perspective, is that he can be quite negative about the game. Which is the opposite to the whole TNT build-up that we've been talking about. But like I hate when it gets to a scrum and he's like, oh, here we go, like we're wasting so much time, or he might give out about these kick battles. I think we should take the focus away from the negativity to actually maybe focus on why they're doing these things, and use, like, a big bugbear for me, for example, is scrum time in games. We want to speed up the game, all this, but I think like when I tune into a game, there's almost one game every weekend where a commentator is like complaining about the scrum and how long it's taken. And I just feel like that's an opportunity for broadcasters to use that time to like try to analyze it, try to talk about the dark arts, try to explain what's going on. Because like we're trying to attract new fans here as well. And like I'm sure you lads, like I love a scrum. Like it is frustrating.
Yep.
That they take so long, but like let's do something about it, because World Rugby are taking their time fixing it. So let's talk about it.
I think that's the most frustrating thing for me in terms of coverage. I'm a tight 5 player myself, so clearly I have a vested interest in it. But if you have a commentator should be explaining what's going on a little bit. And rugby is so complicated. And I say that somebody who plays it and refs it is still complicated to me. And if you want casual viewers, don't go, oh, why is it taking so long? Explain why it's taking so long. Explain what is happening.
Exactly, yeah. And I think just speaking, like, and going back to like who are the good pundits and what makes a good pundit, I think Jerry Flannery is an example of somebody who is just really good at that, just explaining what's going on. Like I was watching a game, I can't remember, it was a couple of weeks ago. It might have involved Ireland, and you could tell that the other person on co-coms was trying to get into maybe the negativity about all the kicking, and he was shutting it down without being rude and just explaining why a particular team was kicking so much and where they were targeted on the field. Just trying to, like, look, it can be boring at times, but he was making a considered effort, I think, because he's a coach and he's an excellent one, and he was just explaining what was going on. And for me, that's key to what makes a good commentator. Just try to explain things. And maybe point out something you don't notice yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's the kind of commentary or punditry you want, rather than the Shane Williams school of just sounding excited about everything. It's and I love Shane Williams as a player, not so much as a pundit, really. Do you think, Enda, so cricket has tried packaging itself in a different way, and it's working to a degree. Cricket gets good numbers, particularly 2020 on TV, the 100, these kind of things. Is there a way that rugby can package itself in a way that's more digestible? And I'm not thinking about kind of sevens, but is there a way that you can make rugby to pull new people into it?
I think there is, but I'm not really sure exactly how we would get to that. Like it is like I think personally rugby is widely available. Like there is this constant debate, obviously, about whether or not rugby should be free to air or on pay TV or a combination of both. But for me, there is a hell of a lot of rugby out there that is on free to air, and it does draw in, massive viewership figures. But what I'm not sure what more we can do. Like I think from maybe World Rugby's perspective and a lot of people online, it's like let's change the game. Like let's speed up scrums, let's
Yeah.
reduce the amount of kicks, let's speed up rucks. And I'm not sure if that's the best approach. I think maybe what we should hone in on is what rugby is all about and just focus on that and focus on just making the broadcast itself maybe a bit more exciting, talk a bit more about players, talk a bit more about stats, and just take the narrative away from all the negative things that I said. But I'm not really sure. Like I think like I think Sky's coverage of the Lions tour, the last Lions tour, they try to think a bit something different, and they had Nigel Owens they were, he was jumping in at times, but then I saw a lot of negative reactions to that as well online. So I'm not sure exactly how we can do it, but I don't think it's changing the sport. I think broadcasters have to think of something. But for me, rugby is out there. Like it is available free to air.
What always strikes? Sorry, Enda, go on. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Okay.
I was just going to say, in terms of a kind of broadcasting, the thing that always strikes me as really effective. I have very little interest in the NFL, but I love watching the Red Zone that they show on Sky.
It's
because
great.
You really get a feel for the game, and you don't have to sit through all the boring bits. And it's just really, really punchy and really exciting. And I have no real knowledge about NFL, but I can watch it and understand what's going on. And I've always thought for rugby there is a scope to have something like that, and you can show all the exciting bits. And when I was a kid, I was more interested in seeing tries and everything else. But now I'm obsessed with scrums and how you field kicks, but you build that through doing the exciting bits, getting people into it. The same with cricket. More people are going to Test cricket because they've got drawn into the game by watching people smack the ball about in the shorter form.
Yeah.
If you pull people in, you'll get them into the game full stop.
Yeah, and I think that's and like stuff like what you guys are doing. You have a pod just based on the Dragon. I think all of these, there are so many pods out there now for rugby. And I think that's part of changing the narrative and part of getting interest back, and just maybe focusing on one team and focusing on how good they are, focusing on their opposition. And I just think that we just need to maybe just do a bit more. Like there's no real magazine show for the URC, for example. I think that's something they're definitely missing out on. We should just hype the hell out of these products without going over the top. Obviously, but even some people say the NFL coverage was over the top, but look at their viewing figures. They're through the roof. And as a rugby fan, it can be, and I'm sure you guys experience this as well, like it can be frustrating to watch that sport because it is so stop-start, but hundreds of millions of people watch it every season. So they're obviously it's a completely different sport and America's different culture, all that. But I think a part of it is, doing something different, better magazine shows, better pods, better coverage, better pre-game coverage, better post-game coverage, all of that, I think. Because I think it can be done.
Interesting stuff. So you mentioned pay TV there and free to air. So that leads on to my next question for you. So where do you stand on the debate between free to air versus pay TV, especially in regards to the Six Nations? So in Wales now, the Senedd, which is the Welsh Parliament, they recently held an inquiry and they have said that they want the Six Nations to be on free to air. They don't want to move into pay TV. This is what we want in Wales. They're saying, rugby is important to Wales, the culture, it's important to the game, national sport and all that stuff. However, the WRU have said that if it did remain on free to air, it would struggle to survive and to fund the game. So it's a difficult balance to be struck here, isn't it? So what do you think is best? Do you think it would be a bad thing for the Six Nations to go on to pay TV completely? Because a lot of people seem to be against that. I mean, my personal opinion is it should have been on the crown jewels of protected events, and why the UK government never did that. for me, it should be on the list with the likes of Wimbledon and the FA Cup final, but it's not. What are your thoughts on it? It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because we need more money, but likewise, you want more eyeballs on the sport.
Exactly. It's a really tricky question. And in Ireland, interesting enough, like it's also not protected. The deferred coverage is protected, but the live coverage isn't. But we haven't had a pay TV broadcaster. And I think, they were quite innovative with the last set of broadcast rights that were sold, in that they allowed RTE and Virgin Media in Ireland, who are two free-to-air broadcasters, to combine their bids and then split their games out accordingly. I think, something like that is potentially a solution to this, because I'd agree in terms of the Six Nations, the Rugby World Cup, like the big men's international and women's international events, I think have to stay on free to air at the moment because of where rugby's at. Now, that might sound kind of intuitive because like rugby needs money as well. But I think, like, I know there was an uplift in the last broadcast cycle for the Six Nations in Ireland because, they thought of something different where they allowed two broadcasters to combine their bids. So I think that's potentially something they could look at. But I think for me, for international rugby events, I think they have to stay on free to air just to get the viewers in. And then, I think for me that's the main way to go. But then you look at the Welsh Rugby Union, who's going through what it's going through. But like, I look at the Irish model as well, and this is something we can maybe get into. But I often, or maybe it's a conversation for another day. It's just like the IRFU gets about like all the clubs in Ireland, so your four main provinces, 80% of their funding, 80% of the IRFU's funding comes from the international game. So that's like, but most of that is gate receipts, and a lot of it's obviously TV money. So they're getting a lot of money that way. And I just wonder, is that potentially an approach the RFU could take, or sorry, not the RFU, the Welsh Rugby Union could take? Yeah, I agree. I wanted to make sure I corrected myself there. And I just, to me, I'm just wondering, is that more of an approach? Just because I think it's so important to keep the Six Nations for sure on free to air, because I think you would definitely lose interest. And from what I've heard, I think even from your last pod, I think numbers of kids playing rugby is starting to potentially drop in Wales. Is that right? And I think if you take away,
it's been declining for a decade. And the men's grassroots game is shrinking rapidly. It's that's not just a Wales thing. That's happening in England as well.
Yeah, even in New Zealand, I heard that there are concerns as well. But like, but then again, you always have that the Premier League example. Like soccer in England is still massive, yet the Premier League has never ever not been behind a paywall. But obviously that's a total kettle of fish, and there's no probably real comparison between rugby and soccer. But it just shows that it is possible still to grow the game even when it is behind pay TV. But I just think where rugby's at the moment, especially in Wales, I think the last thing they should do is prevent people from watching it, because that's why free to air does so well, because it gets casual fans.
Yeah, it does.
The challenge, I think, is there's so much more you can do now. One of the reasons before we came online saying about still playing rugby, and one of the reasons I'm still playing as a 50-year-old man is because young guys aren't coming through, because there are a million and one other things to be doing out there, a million other ways of getting information. And rugby as a sport, as a sport that people participate in, is competing against so many other things. But it's the same for rugby as a viewing experience as well, because there are so many other things you could be watching through so many different platforms.
Exactly. I just think for the international game, I think it's important to keep free to air, but then for the club game like URC, Prem, I think they have to be behind a paywall, especially if you want to catch up with the top 14, which their existing deal is worth 96 million sterling a year. Like it's incredible, the figures, and there are rumors now that their next cycle, which is up in a couple of years, they're gonna fetch even more. Like that's where I think Ireland and the UK need to catch up to. But from a club for the club, from the club perspective, not from the international game.
Yeah. I think it's inevitable that the Six Nations will eventually go on to pay TV. You've seen it now already with the Autumn Nation series. Now TNT have gobbled up the rights for that, haven't they? And I think it will get to a point where it will eventually go to pay TV. And for someone like myself who does have TNT, who has Premier Sports, and I have Amazon, I still want it on free to air. because, like you say, it's all about the casual supporters, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, for example, my mum knows nothing about rugby. She's clueless, but she always watches the Six Nations. She loves the Six Nations. It's an event for people. Gav, what do you think? If it went to pay TV, Six Nations exclusively, would that be a disaster?
I think so, yeah.
Do you think it would?
One of the reasons is you think that, like, I don't know what the rugby culture is like in Ireland massively, but I do know what it's like in Wales. And if you think about your earlier experiences watching rugby, Jamie, it would have been in rugby clubs, it would have been in pubs, the same as mine was. The problem is, it's like if I want to watch rugby on TNT in a pub in Hastings where I live, there's only one pub that does it, because they'll tell you there's absolutely no money to be made from paying for TNT. The licenses are huge and everything else, and kind of when we've Sky and everyone else, if you own a pub, and that's one of the challenges. If it goes free to air, those kind of experiences of watching it communally, they'll really kind of be impacted. But also, like you say, it's a casual fan, isn't it? Is the casual fan going to want to pay £30 a month to watch Wales versus Georgia? No.
Yeah, and we will, and that's the issue. Like, and no doubt, if it did, like, three of us would still subscribe. We probably already do subscribe to TNT, but it's those casual fans. They like, how would you entice them to sign up?
We are singing to the choir, aren't we? Because we're free blokes who appear on rugby podcasts. We clearly have a passion for the sport. The issue is, that's not how you build the game. That's I used to go and watch the first division as it was in the early 90s, and Sky just captured a generation of football fans by the way they covered the game. And you can love it or hate it, but it's bloody effective.
Yeah,
the way they've done it, and they've sustained that for 30 years. So there's something to be said about the pay-per-view, but rugby doesn't have that audience to begin with. It's a minority sport. It must be the same in Ireland as well, Enda, because I know you're competing with football, but you're also competing with your Gaelic sports as well in Ireland.
Exactly, and there is not so much maybe anymore, but it is seen as a bit of an elitist sport in Ireland as well, particularly maybe in Leinster, where a lot of those private schools are. Like, that has changed, but I think maybe when I was growing up, that was a bit of a perception, but thankfully that has changed. But obviously there are still those people who they hate rugby or they've no time for it, and they prefer soccer, Gaelic, hurling, and all those other things. But it's still an extremely popular sport here. But I think that's partly down to obviously the amount of it that's available free to wear. And again, like the URC, week in, week out, is you get a good few games on free to wear, which I think is important. I think the URC has found a really good balance in Ireland. I'm not sure about how the viewing figures are like at the moment in the UK, but having the Irish provinces on free to wear, plus having an option for pay TV, so in Ireland, it's to make things a little bit more confusing. So like Premier Sports, obviously, it's just relaunched in the UK, but it never left Ireland. Like it was a separate entity the whole time, and it was still here throughout the whole time that Viaplay was in the UK. And they do broadcast here, but they don't actually go direct to consumer. What they did was they went to Sky and said, "Hey, can you distribute this for us?" So if you want to subscribe to Premier Sports in the Republic of Ireland, you have to get what's called the Sports Extra package, Sky Sports Extra package. And it comes with TNT bundle. And I think like that's just an example of, it's just a smart way. So, if you want to get rugby, you can do it that way. But if you'd also get TNT plus Premier if you want to watch. So it's like you're going to get both the URC and the Heineken Cup that way, Champions Cup. But then also you can, if you do just want to follow your local province, you can just watch it free to wear. And I think that's a really smart balance. And they've got URC TV.
Do you think the viewing figures in Ireland are impacted by the success? Because
100%,
internationally, you're doing well, but club-wise as well, can reigning URC champions in Munster. Leinster are a powerful force and will win it sooner rather than later, and will win in Europe. That's going to have an impact, isn't it? It's
100%. And you guys touched on it in last week's pod as well. Like if you look at a club like Benetton now, they're doing well and they're selling out their 5,000 seater stadium every week. That's like, it's an obvious one, but I think, yeah, having it available as well and accessible is really important.
No, I completely agree. So in Wales, in terms of URC coverage, so we got BBC Two Wales and they show the Friday night game. So Scarlet Sharks will be live on BBC Two Wales on the Friday night. And then S4C, the Welsh language broadcaster, they'll show the Saturday games. We also have then Premier Sports. So we had Premier Sports to begin with. Then now went to Viaplay. Now it's back to Premier Sports. However, and I know that you've been writing about this on X as well, haven't you? Because there's been some issues with Premier Sports since they've returned. What kind of issues have you been hearing about then, Enda? What have people been saying to you?
Just before I touch on that, actually, one really interesting thing as well. I'd say Premier Sports are laughing because the rumored price that they sold the service to Viaplay was around 30 million. And then apparently they bought it back for about 6. So I think they're doing very well. Now, again, these are unconfirmed, but these are from legitimate news, sources. Course, but it's been a bit tricky. I think what I'm trying to do is just get people to contact me and just like, I actually reached out to Adam Redmond, who's the head of comms for the URC, and he actually responded, which really nice. He's trying to get me a contact, because what I'm trying to say to him is that, look, I'm not trying to just complain. I want to just say here, I've got a significant following and these people are having issues. We just want to improve the URC viewing experience. So trying to get that sort of people, but a lot of the issues, like there are various issues. Loads of people had issues who were previous Viaplay fans. Then trying to log into your new Premier Sports account was really difficult because they migrated customers. So if you were a Viaplay customer, you then became Premier Sports, but people had issues then logging in. A lot of people are having loads of issues with the player and the app. Unfortunately, the linear channels are great. They're fine. No issues there, which is, again, it's probably conversation for another, like satellite's still the best way to get TV and live sport into somebody's home. If you look at a product like, sorry to deviate a bit, but if you look at a product like Sky Glass or Sky Stream, now they've just announced that they're doing this update for this device and they're going to reduce the latency by 20 seconds. But that's what so like streaming is still incredibly far behind satellite. It's still the best way to get live sports in your room.
I have Sky Glass, and I'll be in group chats, and I always know what's happening because someone will say, "Oh my God, I can't believe they scored then." What? And I'll be a minute behind or something.
But it just shows you how far streaming is yet to come as well.
Yeah,
like satellite is still the best form of getting live sports, I think. But so Premier Sports, there are 2 channels. Thankfully, are okay. It's just primarily their player and their app. People are having issues with them, crashing, buffering. Apparently, there was no coverage of certain games this past weekend. But to be fair to them, instead of just complaining, like, it is really difficult to get this right, especially having worked for Sky. Like, it is really difficult to launch a streaming platform and get it right. And they only announced the takeover the end of Q4, and we're just at the end of Q1. So these things do take time, unfortunately. But what I'm trying to do is just focus on the positives with it and just give them the feedback. And I'm sure they're trying really hard to get it right. But streaming is really, really difficult.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. And I've got Virgin Media, so it's pretty straightforward. It was a seamless, transition from Viaplay to Premier. Something you just mentioned there, that's something I've noticed as well. Not every game has been live since they've returned. So our game is on S4C and Premier Sports, but last week our game was only on S4C, and normally it's on S4C and Premier Sports. The same with the Scarlets. I checked the TV guide today. It's live on BBC Two Wales. It's not on Premier Sports. Do you know why that's happened? Do you have any information on that?
So one of the main reasons is that the third channel that Viaplay had was discontinued a number of months ago now, Viaplay Sport, or Viaplay Extra it was called. So Premier are now down to 2 linear channels. Now I know Viaplay were the same, but Viaplay had slowly started that shift to showing more games online only. But for me, I think the main reason is just capacity. They only have 2 channels that can only show a certain amount of games. And if you are starting to see more games going online, that's probably telling you something about the viewing figures as well. That there's probably a reason they're going to put their best content that they see and that they get the best viewership for ahead of the content they're going to put online. And I think that's probably it. as well. Like if you look at, and this was the same at Viaplay, like they and now Premier Sports, they have the rights to the top 14 for up to 4 games per weekend for the last couple of months. 4 of those games have all been just on the Viaplay app. And why aren't they on their linear channels? That's probably telling you that maybe the viewing, I don't know, but maybe those viewing figures weren't there. But yeah, if the game isn't on the linear channels of Premier Sports, it is meant to be on their app. And now I know there were 1 or 2 games last weekend that weren't, but I think those are just teething issues. So that you should, in theory, still be able to watch every single URC game live on Viaplay, or on Premier Sports, I should say. But for customers like yourself, Jamie, the frustrating thing is, I'm pretty sure your access now, because you probably subscribe. Do you subscribe to Premier Sports via Virgin Media? Like, do you pay for it via Virgin Media, or do you have a separate subscription to Premier?
Yeah, it's through Virgin, it is. I can't go through Premier, so I don't have access to the app as part of a sports package. So I go through Virgin.
So it's confused things even more, and not to deviate too much again. So like they've launched different packages, and like, so if you want to get Premier Sports, the best way to probably, if you're a Sky customer and you sign up via Premier, they give you access to linear channels, but they also give you access to the app. So you can now, unfortunately, though, the Premier Sports app is not on Sky Glass or Sky Stream or even Sky Q yet. But you can still obviously open your laptop and cast or whatever. So, but if you subscribe via Virgin Media, you don't get access to the app.
No.
And then but then if you subscribe directly through Premier, you will get access to the app, but then not the channel. So like there are all these different ways. Now they have outlined it pretty well on their website, but again, like imagine a casual fan trying to figure out like, how the hell do I watch this game this weekend? It's on Premier, but it's actually not on their linear channels. It's on their streaming service. How do I get the streaming service? Oh, I'll get it through Virgin. Oh wait, no, this only gets me the linear channels. So like when you start to read into it, it's actually like all of it is quite complicated at times, which is frustrating.
It's even more complicated if, like myself, you subscribe via Amazon Prime. So I subscribe to Viaplay via Amazon Prime via an add-on. And that didn't automatically switch over. So I had to cancel my Viaplay and then add the Premier through that. It's not been an easy situation.
Yeah, but I think so. The main reason is anyway. They've only got 2 linear channels, and they've a pretty extensive portfolio of content. So they need to try to distribute that evenly across 2 channels. So yeah, in theory, you should have access to those games on the app. But as yourself, Jamie, because you're paying through Virgin, it's probably your only option is S4C or the free-to-air option.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah, it's all very interesting. This, I think, is great. I could talk about.
I find it incredibly interesting. Yeah, I'm like, does anybody else actually find this interesting?
I really enjoy it. Okay, so let's talk about your pod then that you do with him. So you do the Prirate Rugby podcast, it's called. Could you tell us all about that? And something I want to know: why is it called Prirate Rugby Podcast?
Right. So the main reason it's called the Pirate Rugby Pod is because Hugh and I have been messaging back and forth on X, on Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And it was just a joke that came up. We thought about pirate radio. He kind of knew that I was interested in broadcast rights. So we're like, we start this pirate thing. So that's kind of where it came from. I don't know if it makes a hell of a lot of sense. We have no association whatsoever with Cornish pirates. But yeah, here we are. We've come up with a name. It is what it is. We're not really sure how we got there, but something to do with pirate radio. We're the Pirate Pod, where we talk about things that other podcasters maybe don't talk about. But for me personally, I had actually, and a shout out to the Rap Pod, I had heard Hugh when you guys had him on as a guest before, and I think he was talking about stats from Alderweireld. I think it was mainly he was comparing because I think Hugh's fame, what we call it on Twitter, had exploded when he kind of talked about. He came to the conclusion with one massive thread that the URC is the best league or whatever, and he looked in. He did a deep dive on the stats on URC v Prem. Basically, I think you had him on to talk about that in more detail, and I just listened to him. I found it very interesting. Yeah, and then very articulate young man. So yeah, just got in touch with him, and I just wanted a platform to be honest to talk about broadcast rights, and thankfully Hugh was good enough to take on the idea with me. But yeah, the idea is just to talk about, we are very quite URC focused, but we do try to make ourselves a bit niche or a bit different by talking about a lot of various different competitions from around the world as well, and getting.
Yeah.
I think this is something you guys do as well, is getting, like, we haven't had a former player on yet. We haven't even tried to contact one. We're trying to like reach out to maybe the X community, Twitter community, or just rugby fans or people who are passionate about rugby with a decent following online, and they actually but they know their stuff and they want to talk about it, and we want to give them that platform as well. Because I think that's important, and it touches on when we spoke about what makes a good commentator. It's not always necessarily the ex player. That's, like, personally, when I'm listening to a pod, I don't always really want to listen to maybe a former player, or well, especially not a current player, because they're given a script, especially in Ireland, and they can't say anything interesting. But I just think it's interesting to talk about people from the media, and then from the, I don't know, the part-time media like ourselves, where we do it all for free and just for the love of the game. So yeah, I think that answers your question. But yeah, just wanted to get on a pod, start something, talk about something with somebody who was interesting, and just try to do things a little bit differently. And yeah, we're doing pretty well. I think we're enjoying it anyway. That's the main thing. It doesn't really feel like a job.
Yeah, because it seems to be growing, doesn't it, the pod? That's something I've noticed, right? Getting more subscribers, getting more listeners. And you do cover all the leagues across the world, basically, don't you? You read out the results, and you do cover the URC, top 14, the Japanese league. And so if people want to know what's going on around the world, they can listen to your pod, can't they? And
exactly, yeah. And we tried to get various different voices on, or people, like, we've had a couple of guests on who never have been on a pod, who were really nervous maybe coming on. Then they came on and they were brilliant, and we got some really good feedback. And that's what we're trying to do. So, like, we don't necessarily want to get a massive rugby expert on, but we do, obviously, at times. But you just want to get like a casual viewer, or like somebody like Leslie, who we had on months ago, and she was like, she had only started watching rugby a couple of seasons ago, and it was great just to hear about, like, a relatively new, like, we've been watching rugby since we were probably this high, and she was relatively new to rugby, and it's fascinating hearing about how she got into it. And I think that's what people want to hear about and talk about as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good pod. I highly recommend it. Right then, shall we talk about Connacht, your boys? So, reached the Challenge Cup quarterfinals after a tough Champions Cup campaign, and you're currently 9th in the URC table, and you're chasing the top 8. And what have you made of Connacht season so far? Are you happy with it, or what do you feel about it?
It's been a bit of a journey. It was a really good start. It was potentially going to be Connacht's, like, potentially the best start ever to a season, 3 wins in a trot, and then had a difficult away loss against, I think it was Edinburgh in one of the early rounds of the URC, and it was by a drop goal by former Munster player Ben Healy, who's having a fantastic season for Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And it's been kind of inconsistent since then. Like, in the opening game of the Champions Cup at home to Bordeaux, got absolutely blown away, but then beat Pat Lam's Bristol. Like, it's been kind of, the form has been in and out. There've been a lot of changes week on week with selection. A lot of players in, a lot of players out, week on week. Like, it can change. Jack Carty has been, like, he's the club captain, and he was dropped essentially this season for JJ Hanrahan, who's come in and done a really good job as well. But there has been a lot of chopping and changing, and a couple of injuries, like the superstar signing, which is Santiago Cordero, hasn't played a minute in the URC yet. Now, apparently he is due back in a couple of weeks, which is good.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just been an inconsistent season. Form has been up and down, and I'm sure you guys have watched a few Connacht games, like it, and I'm sure you could imagine what it's like from a Connacht perspective, being a Connacht fan. It can be really frustrating, especially on defense. I think we're really good in attack. But look, there are a lot of positives to me, though, from this overall season. Like, 9th, am I happy with it? Like, kind of, because I think that's where Connacht are, and I think that's where they deserve to be at this stage of the season, given the performances they put in. And they've got an incredibly tough, like, up against you guys next week, away to Munster, away to Leinster, and then one final home game against the Stormers. And
that's tough. That's a tough run, isn't it?
That's tough. I'm actually going to the away Munster game. Went last year, wasn't a pleasant experience. So hopefully this time is a bit better. But interesting as well that last home game against Stormers is going to be the last game at the sports ground, or Dexcom Stadium as we know it, because they've actually started the redevelopment phase where they're building the performance of excellence, or whatever they call it. They're doing that first, but they're knocking the Clan stand. After that, it's starting this summer. So for next season at the sports ground Dexcom, it's going to be, a mini terrace behind each post, and then that other another stand where you never see on TV because that's where the cameras usually are. So it's going to be a really strange atmosphere. But anyway, it's all for a really good cause. You know, they're spending 30 million upgrading the stadium. It's going to be a way better place to go. I'm sure you've heard like the sports ground's the worst place to go in terms of the weather. It probably is, especially the wind.
Yeah.
But with the new pitch, the new lights, the new stadium, I think it's going the right direction. And if you look at some of the re-signings lately as well, like I think Connacht is going like a lot of people have been negative about the season. Yeah, they're having a tough season, but I just think the foundations are there and the squad is there. And a lot of that is homegrown talent, which I think is really positive. But I think they're going in the right direction. But it's been a frustrating season. Gav, were you going to jump in there, were you?
No, well, I was just going to say about the ground. I've never seen a game there, but I've actually been to Galway a number of occasions on the west of Ireland, and it always just strikes me as a really difficult place to play because it's quite enclosed, and like you say, it can be windy out there. Do you think the changes are going to take away some of that kind of? Because it always felt like it was right on the pitch almost, and I know there's a track around it, but it felt a bit more enclosed than others. Do you think that's going to change with the upgrades to it?
I think potentially, but honestly, like I hope no Connacht fans tune in, but they will. But like I don't really enjoy going to the sports ground. It is old. It isn't that well enclosed. It is at the top of a hill basically, so it's really exposed to all the elements. So if the weather's bad, which it usually is, you usually get wet, you get drenched. Now some people love that, and I actually kind of do, and to an extent, to go because that's how you absorb it. And you're watching the least funded Irish province, and you have a bit of a chip on your shoulder, and I like that. But I want a better experience. I want a nicer stadium, and I think with all the funding and everything that's going to come from that, I think it's going to be a much better experience for fans. Like you can actually sit at a game. I think that's going to be pretty exciting for Connacht fans because they are building an actual seated covered stand, which I think is definitely welcome. So I hope it doesn't. And I think changing the pitch, like I personally am not a massive fan of the plastic pitches. They've changed it though, so I think that has improved the product probably on the pitch because you're not maybe dealing with, I don't know, like it was a heavy ground to play on and everything. So I think that they've maybe addressed, like maybe that's already changed because they've changed the pitch to an extent. But from like a fan's experience, I think it's for the better. Like I think it's going to be a better experience. But having said that though, I don't want to be overly negative. Like they do put a lot of effort into their pre-game and everything, and it is a good, like I definitely encourage people to go to a Connacht game. I just find it personally frustrating, but I think like people would enjoy it. They do put a lot of effort in. They play music for the games for the URC games. They turn off the lights. They put on a bit of a light show. Like it's cool. It's a bit different. That they've got the flamethrowers and all that. Some people think it's all nonsense. I think it gets new fans in, and that's what I want to see. And I think once they've a new brand spanking new stadium with I think it's going to increase the capacity only by a couple of. I think it's going to be about 10 to 12,000 potentially, but that could be wrong on that. But it's not going to be at near like an RDS that's around 18,000, 19,000. It's going to be purpose built for Connacht, which they're never going to get 20,000 plus at a game. I don't think in the near future.
Is there a rugby audience out there? Like I say, I've been to the West of Ireland a lot. I know there's a big football, like soccer culture there, and I know Gaelic sports, particularly hurling out there, is a big thing. Is there a rugby culture there?
There is a rugby culture, but GAA is 100 times bigger. Certainly, definitely is. I played rugby in Galway growing up, and it was definitely a minority sport. It was growing at the time, and I'd like to think it still is growing, and it still is popular. But like a lot of it comes down to demographics. We won't get into the Leinster, Brody Barrett news and all that, and all the But like partly Leinster so good is because of demographics, and they have a mass population. Like Galway, the west of Ireland has a tiny population compared to the rest of Ireland. And then you're just trying to get fans out of those people who are already embedded in communities that play GAA and all that. So it's a battle, but there are fans there. And I think the unbelievable Pro 14, or what was it, Pro 12 at the time, win, that got new fans. And I think some of those fans have thankfully stuck around. And Connacht do get decent crowds as well, week in, week out, based on the stadium. But a lot of it does come down to demographics. But there is an interest in rugby. But it's definitely not up there with your Gaelic games. But I'd like to think it is growing, and it's in the best place possible. I think in terms of like it isn't as I said, the best rugby ground, but it is in the heart of Galway City. It's easy to get to,
Yes.
if you can get into Galway, that is. So I think that's an experience in itself. Just coming to Galway I think people partly come just for the night out after. I don't know, but yeah, I would definitely recommend going to the sports ground. It's an experience. I just can't personally wait for it. Yeah, a new stadium. Yeah.
Great stuff. Okay, so this Saturday it's Dragons versus Connacht at Rodney Parade. Kickoff 8 o'clock. Not impressed with that kickoff time. You have to be honest. I think it's too late for families personally, but it is. It is 8 o'clock. So, Enda, for people who can't attend the game, where can they watch it?
So, good news on the free-to-air front. It is on S4C in the UK, and it's going to be on apparently Premier Sports linear channel. So, Premier Sports 1 should also be showing this game. It is listed, so it'll also be available there. If you're in Ireland, listen to this pod. It'll be on RTE2. It'll be streamed on Now. It'll be on URC TV, and it'll be on Premier Sports 2, just to confuse things. So like it's on Premier Sports 1 in the UK, but Premier Sports 2 in Ireland. So yeah.
Excellent.
But yeah, that's where people can watch it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, top man. So head to head between these two teams. They've played each other 34 times. Dragons have won 12, Connacht have won 22. There's an interesting stat for you. So since Dragons beat Connacht in Galway back in October 2021, do you remember that? Do you remember that game? Jonah Holmes, Gav, remember he scored?
I do indeed, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, since Dragons beat Connacht in Galway back in October 2021, Connacht have won their last 9 matches against Welsh regions. Not bad, is it? They like playing the Welsh, Connacht, I think, at the moment.
That's
right,
impressive.
Gav, it is quite impressive. When was the last time, it's a question for you, Gav, I always do this to him. When was the last time Dragons beat Connacht at Romney Parade? What do you think?
Oh, I was going to say it was last season, but it wasn't. That was Munster, wasn't it?
Yep.
I'm going to say during the COVID period. So
I want you to give me a year.
2020.
Enda, do you want to guess?
I'd go with 2020 as well. I can't remember, but I'm thinking, yeah, there were a lot of different results during COVID, weren't there? I don't want to say to hurt anyone.
Okay. Yeah. You're both wrong. It was September 2017.
Oh,
so it was during the Bernard Jackman was Dragons coach. And we won 21-8. Yeah, so the last time we beat Connacht in Newport was September 2017. A little while ago, wasn't it? Elliot D, he's set to make his 150th appearance for the Dragons this weekend. Well done, Elliot. It's a really good milestone. So, Enda, what are you expecting to see on Saturday night in this game? What are you looking for?
I'm looking for a good game. Did I hear that the weather is going to be good or bad?
Oh, I haven't actually checked.
I will tell you now.
I don't honestly, like, from a Connacht perspective, I part of me expects to win. But part of me would be not one bit surprised if the Dragons pulled off a win. No disrespect to the Dragons at all. I just think Connacht have been inconsistent again this season. But I am hoping that, I don't want to read too much into the Zebra performance because unfortunately it was Zebra. Again, we all know just where Zebra are at. They're improving, but you're expected to beat them. You're expected to beat them with a bonus point. So I don't want to read too much into Connacht's form there. But I think they should get the job done. I think it should be a nice free-flowing performance from Connacht. I hope. It's difficult. It's a difficult one for me. I think Santiago Cordero is rumored to be back quite soon. Mac Hansen's also rumored to be back quite soon. Will they give Bundy I think Connacht will go full board. They're going to go at all guns blazing. I think, and a lot of players are back fit. So I think Connacht could put in a really good performance, and I think they have it in them. But again, just don't want to read too much into their last performance. You're only as good as your last game. So I don't know. What are you guys expecting from this? Like, am I? Do you think it'll be an easy one for Connacht? Do you think Dragons have something in them to sneak it, or will it be a dogfight?
Well, I'm of the view that this is a game we should be targeting. That's no disrespect to Connacht. That's just teams who are finishing kind of 9th, 10th below. We should be targeting home wins against them. We don't win enough games. The problem we've got is that we can't defend. Yeah, and I know you said that, but there are times, and I watched the game, even though I knew the result against Benetton, and it wasn't systematic. It was just like not being able to defend particularly well. And what I've seen of Connacht this season is they are good at getting the ball wide. And then if you're telling me that, Bundy could be back or could be in the team, or Mark Hansen could be, well, that's going to make it even harder, because these are players who know how to attack. So I'm not sure. I always try to be optimistic, but I can't see us winning it. But I would like us to at least be competitive. That's my wish.
I think this is a winnable game. I spoke about this on Rap. So we know Connacht are a good side, and they're going to come down here. And I was listening to Pete Wilkins' press conference, and he was talking about our threats, our back row and our kicking game. And he talked about Rodney Parade being intimidating. So Connacht know what to expect. They know we're going to give them a game, and I think we will. I think we will see an improved performance. But I do think this is a winnable game, because as good as Connacht are, they're not Munster, they're not Leinster, and we've had some good battles over the years, especially at Rodney Parade. They've always been closely fought. The last time Connacht came to Rodney Parade, they only beat us by 2 points, and we were down by a man, wasn't we? It was Matthew Screecher got sent off. We were playing with 40 men, and we should have won that game, because I always remember it was Ashton Hewitt. He butchered that try, didn't he? Missed the 2-man overlap. And if he'd scored and gone over, we would have won. But it's it is always an interesting game between these two teams, and I do think it's a winnable game. But we'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully, it will be a good and entertaining game. And of course, JJ Hanrahan will be making his return to Rodney Parade. Remember him, Gav?
I do indeed. Yeah, and we've talked about him a number of times. He was a really good backup player for us. He was a useful player to have. Yeah. We just couldn't afford to keep him. I'd have loved to have for him to stay at the club.
Yeah, he's a good player.
Been brilliant, isn't he?
Yeah, he's been great.
Good for you guys.
And as I said earlier, like, he's keeping Jack Carty out of the side, and I highly rate Jack Carty. He's a great player, club captain. I think it's. And I'm glad for JJ as well. He seems to have gone to an awful lot of different clubs, and hopefully he's found his feet down in Connacht and he's enjoying his time there. And because there's no doubt that he's definitely a talent.
Yeah, a lot of people saying he's the signing of the season in Irish rugby. So
he's up there.
It's really good. Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so predictions time. Gav, what are you saying for this game now? What's your score prediction here?
We are going to lose. It's going to be a high-scoring game, and we're going to lose 21-27.
Okay, so you're saying Connacht by 6 then?
Yes.
Okay. I said on the Rap podcast on Monday, Dragons by 3 points. Yes, I am being optimistic. Do I fully believe we can win? I'm not sure, but I do think that this is a winnable game. It wouldn't be surprising if we won this. I don't think it'd be a shock.
No.
But we are going to have to step it up. We'll talk about the Benetton performance a bit later on, because I got a few things to say about that. But we are really going to have to step it up, because Connacht are a very good team. We know what to expect. They're going to be physical. They're really good in the counter-attack. They've got a good kicking game. JJ's going to try and control the game. And we know how good he is at 10, so we really got to be on it. So, and over to you now. What's your prediction for this weekend? Are you confident? Is this a banana skin for Connacht? How do you see this game going?
I think it's going to be tight. I think it's potentially going to be tight. I don't think certainly Connacht aren't going to run away with it. I don't think so. It's coming towards the back end of the season. You guys are at home. You're going to want to put in a really good performance. Definitely targeting this game 100%. I think Connacht can maybe win by about between 3 and 5 points. I think it'll be that tight. Again, could be completely wrong. And like you, Jamie, I would not be surprised if Dragons pulled it off, given Connacht's form this year. I hope I'm wrong, but yeah, I think it'll be tight enough for the Connacht to win between 3 and 5 points. And it'll be, I think it'll be high scoring as well. I think it'll be up. I agree with you, Gav. I think it'll be 25, 26, 27.
Is this a must-win game for Connacht now then? And when you look at this season, they can't slip up now, can they?
No, because like Leinster, like in the RDS, Munster in Thomond Park, and at home to the Stormers, and the Stormers are obviously hurting after last week, and they need to finish strongly. So they're going to be fired up. They're going to put out a full strength squad. So I think it absolutely like last week was a must-win game, must-win bonus point, if I'm honest. So Connacht, I think, will be targeting a bonus point here, and I think they have to, because look at Leinster's home record, look at Munster's home record, and they're in bloody ninth. So yeah, they'll be targeting this big time.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And I could talk about rugby broadcasting for ages. It was really fascinating. I don't know what listeners to think. I'm sure some will love it. But, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Where can people find you if they want to know more about rugby broadcast online, like where to find the games and the rugby podcast and social media? Where can you be found in the Pirate Rugby Pod?
Grant, so if you want to find my Twitter, where I mainly talk about media rights, it's just the rugby broadcast. Just on Twitter, that's it. And then if you want to tune in and hear me talk about rugby broadcast right, but mainly rugby, to be honest. They're not all broadcast rights in the pod. Don't worry, you can just search the Pirate Rugby Pod. We're on Spotify. We're on Sports Social like you guys, so you can find us in all the usual places. And every week I post a weekend guide for fans on where they can watch the games as well. So hopefully people will enjoy that.
Excellent. And I would advise all our listeners, because I know there are some people, especially on the Facebook forums, guaranteed there's always someone saying, is the game on TV? Well, you need to be on Twitter and follow Rugby Broadcast. So then you'll know, because he does all the schedules, don't you? You put all the games on that's on television in UK and Ireland, so it's well worth a follow.
Yeah, so, we've got 40 games coming up this weekend, incredibly. And 24 of those are available free to air. So people have no excuse not to watch, hours and hours of rugby this weekend.
Brilliant. Excellent. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll let you go now and enjoy the game this weekend. Best of luck to Connacht for the rest of the season. Not for Saturday, I will add. I'm sorry, not sorry, but we do need a win. So
expect nothing
best
less.
of luck.
Thanks a million, lads. Really appreciate it. Really enjoyed it. Talk to you again.
Thank you, Enda. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Ta-ra now. There we go. That was an interesting chat. I love talking about rugby TV and rights and broadcasting. I could have talked all night about that. I find that quite interesting. Do you, Gav, or punditry and stuff?
I find it less interesting, if I'm honest. I think Enda brings a real kind of clarity to it, and he understands what he's talking about. And I think rugby as a sport is poorly served by broadcasting generally, but and it's not going to. I'm interested to see how it gets better. But I think the Enda really explained. I've always wondered about Irish rugby following, and it's interesting how he talked about the amount that's been shown on free to air. So that was very interesting.
It's always good to get the news from across the Irish Sea, isn't it? Again, other people's perspectives. And I love having guests on the pod and just talking to them about different viewpoints and different subjects,
Well, I think, it's easy for us to just fall down a bit of a wormhole, isn't it, of talking about rugby in Gwent. And it's not just rugby in Gwent, it's part of this kind of European-wide competition. So we need to expand our view of it.
Yeah.
Says a man who's going to be reading out results, from tiny villages in Gwent in a while. But
I enjoyed that. Very interesting chat.
Yeah,
Hope you all listened. Thought it was interesting too. Okay, bit of news then. In the South Wales Argus today, it says Dragons have agreed a deal with a new defence coach, Gav. We're getting a defence coach. Can you believe it? They'll never catch on, will it? A rugby team having a full-time defence coach. But from overseas, unnamed. We don't know who this person is, but the deal's been done apparently. So Dave Flanagan said, we need someone with a massive aura who will grab the role and lead, while I need an experienced coach that I can learn from and lean on at times. That's honesty there, right there, isn't it? Because I think that I could do a bit more experience. We do think he might be a little bit too deep, but fair play to him. He's admitted that he needs help. I knew when coming to the region it wouldn't be easy, and I need that ally. I have found him, and it will be awesome when we can announce it and we can move forward. So good news there. We're finally getting a defensive coach.
Have we heard any names yet?
No, there was no names mentioned in the article.
And there's no.
And I haven't heard.
You've got your ear to the. You've got the ear to the Newport grapevine. You've not.
I haven't heard.
Okay.
I haven't heard, I'm afraid. I wouldn't be allowed to say so on this pod anyway.
No,
but
of course not.
I genuinely haven't heard any names being mentioned. So that'll be quite interesting to see with this. Right, Gav, we will have to talk about, I'm afraid. Benetton 36, Dragons 19. A score that, well, let's be honest, flatters the Dragons.
Really
As
did.
Benetton bombed a number of chances in the first half, but they still led 19-0 at the break. Now, the Dragons, well, they mounted a comeback of sorts with a pair of interception tries from Chad Ross, who's playing very well at the moment.
Yeah.
Dane Blacker took his try well, and then replacement scrum half from Newport FC, Shea Hope, he scored a well-worked try, but it did finish 36-19. Despite the poor performance, Dragons did have a chance of a try bonus point, so the clock was in the red. Dragons won a penalty. All Will Reed had to do was kick to the corner, and he missed touch, which really did sum up the afternoon, I'm afraid. So Dave Flanagan said after the game, I'm bitterly disappointed. There are errors in our game that allow the game to go away from us at moments in matches that we are not executing on. We need to be better. How many times have we heard that this season? We need to be better and we need to start better. Then, when we have momentum swings, we've got a chance. We've got to look at ourselves. It was an opportunity missed. Not sure how it was an opportunity missed because we was never in the game. But anyway, he says it was an opportunity missed. Gav, look, we did expect the Dragons to win this game. You know, we had the splits and scrums guys on, didn't we? We talked about hopefully getting a losing bonus point. We didn't expect the Dragons to win, like I said, but we expected better than this, didn't we?
Oh, it was poor. It was poor. There were two issues for me, and I'm not going to talk about leadership. I'm too reckless as all gavel. I'm not going to talk about leadership. It was brainless at times. It wasn't lack of leadership.
Yes.
It was It just lacked basic rugby intelligence. That's nothing to do with leadership. That's just to do with ability to play the game properly. And the other bit as well, I thought for the first 25 minutes, there was just no real effort. Because you can't. We had this chat on like text this week. You know, we can't do anything about the fact that Leinster and teams have got great squads. We can't do anything about that.
No, we can't.
But effort is in the hands of the players. Effort isn't in the hands of coaches or playing budgets. It's in the hands of the players. And there wasn't the level of effort. It was. We just looked pedestrian. Back row weren't getting around the field enough. There was no real sense of, you know, sometimes with a player, you'll see a player get a ball and you think, well, they're going to get over the line. At no point did we seem to run with any real intensity or in energy. We can't be living off scraps and we can't be relying on Jared Ross to finish chances for us. But that's what seems to be happening. It was just a really, really poor performance. And I don't like being negative, but I can't say, this was all right and this was all right, because nothing was all right.
No, look, we're Dragon supporters and, you know, we do promote the region and we promote the team and we do get behind them. But there are times, Gav, when you got to call stuff out. You got to call these performances out. I wasn't happy after the game. And I'm not happy at all. We shouldn't be happy as supporters with this level of performance because what we saw on Saturday is what we've seen for most of the season. Poor discipline, passive defence, creaky scrum, clunky attack, compounding errors. Why do we give teams easy points? You know, we seem to give them easy points either through bad defence or missed passes. The back row didn't function at all. No. We got badly beaten at the breakdown. Benetton won 11 turnovers. Dragons only won 3. You know, 19-0 down at half time. What good is that? What good is being 19-0 down? It's game over, isn't it? Now, there are teams in the league, other teams who could mount a comeback from that, who could probably overturn that. But with the Dragons, you just know, when we're 19-20-0 down at half time, it's game over. And I don't know about you, Gab, but I think questions now have to be asked as to why Dragons are so uncompetitive away from home compared to when they are playing at Rodney Parade. Because I just think no matter where you play your rugby, the basics should be a given. You've got to make your tackles.
What it felt like to me was, it's a creaky analogy, but it's a bit like, you know, I play very low level of rugby. And if we have a home game or a close by away game, you get a decent squad, everybody turns up. It's a bit like they've had to travel on the day, they've all turned up, 4 of them piled out to the back of someone's car, everyone's a bit heavy-limbed and no one can be really arsed. These are professional sportsmen. They'd stayed in Italy overnight. They'd have had the training sessions. It looked amateurish. And we often do look amateurish away from home. We don't look well prepared enough. And that could be to do with coaching. You know, I don't know if our coaches can travel away when we're playing away games. It looks amateurish at times, and it can't because it's a professional sport and a professional team.
Yeah, and at home, the Dragons have won 4 out of their last 6 games at Rodney Parade.
Mm-hmm.
We know we're competitive at home. Away from home, it's a completely different story. So we haven't won away in the URC since beating Scarlets at Parker Scarlets, and that was in April 2022. It's not good enough.
Well, it's 2 years.
Sorry, it's just not good enough. It's embarrassing. Why can't they play away from home? What is going on there? Why can't they do it?
A professional team not winning an away game in 2 years. That is something, isn't it? That is a massive issue. And I do think it's to do with the way we're preparing. Are we taking a proper coaching setup? Are we preparing properly when we're away? Because it doesn't feel like it.
And I sent you that article that Chris Kerwin wrote in the Argus, and he was saying that Dragons, need to take a leaf out of Cardiff's book. Now, I've been saying this on Rap for a few weeks, if anyone's listened to Rap Pod. Cardiff have only won 3 games all season, but what they are is competitive, and they're picking up losing bones. Look at their performance out in Ulster, right? A lot of teams we did pick up a try bonus point in fight, but the point is we weren't really competitive.
No.
Cardiff have been competitive in every single, apart from Toulouse in the Champions Cup, they have been competitive in every single game. And when they go away from the Arms Park, they fight. And they had the Cardiff Central boys, by the way, they had Matt Sherratt on their pod this week. And he spoke, I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was basically saying, we know we can play at the Arms Park, we play a certain brand of rugby, but when we go away from home, we don't want to crumble. He said, because good teams don't do that. He was literally talking about us. That's what we do. Away from home, we crumble, and we've got to start being more competitive. Look at the Ospreys; they went to Stormers, they beat Stormers.
And it's not even like we crumble when we go to Leinster. Look at the performance when we went to Cardiff. It's 19 miles. It's 19 miles up the M4. So maybe it's not even about preparation, because I'm sure we took our coaching setup up the road to Cardiff and still failed miserably. In fact, that was probably the worst away performance of the season for me.
I don't think it was worse than Cardiff.
No, that's what I mean, the Cardiff one I'm talking about.
Oh, the Cardiff, sorry, I thought you meant this better to. Oh, God, that was the worst performance of the whole season,
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean? When you look at the other regions, I'm not going to include the Scarlets in this because they capitulated up in Edinburgh, though they did play well for 50 minutes. But when you look at Cardiff, when you look at the Ospreys, away from home, they're battling, they're fighting, they're working hard, they don't roll over. And Gav, I don't want to call out players. I don't want to say they're not trying, but there are times where it doesn't look like they want to be there. The effort's not there. And I'm not the only one that thinks either. Chris Kerwin wrote about it in his Argus column. The optics are not good.
It's just a lack of effort. And I'm not going to call out individual players because
no, we won't do that.
That's a dick move.
Yeah.
But it's not a dick move to say they were players who weren't making a big enough effort against Benetton.
Yeah.
And I know people, and these are professional players. If you're whatever, if you want your car valeted and the bloke only does half a job and leaves crap all over your carpet, you're not going to be happy because you're paying for that. People are paying for this. People flew out to Italy to watch this game, and it would have cost a lot of money. And they deserve better. They deserve great levels of effort from the players.
I'm just getting tired now of watching these really meek performances. Like I said, it's not a losing. It's not the fact that we lost. It bothers me. It's the lack of effort and the performance levels. I could accept losing to Benetton. I could accept losing most weeks. But I want to see a good performance. I want to see fight. I want to see grit. And I'm not seeing it at the moment, Gav, especially away from home. And it's not good enough at this level. I'm sorry, it is not good enough.
Away from home, we tend to go there and just roll over and get our bellies tickled.
Yeah.
That's
exactly
what it
what we
feels like. And it's not right. Because if you think some of the home performances, even games we've lost, at least we've given, like the Bulls game, at least we give her a bit of, we give her a bit of blood and thunder. But we just can't just keep going there and just go, no, sorry, rolling over, do what you want. It's not good. It's not good for the fans. And the fans are the ones who are funding it.
So okay, Gav, I know it's a difficult question to answer. Why does this happen? Is it mentality? Is it psychological?
Well, I think some of it's in the coaching. I'm convinced of that.
Yeah.
Because coaches create culture, and we aren't creating that culture. But some of it's in the players. Because you can coach stuff. You can't coach effort. Either players are making the effort or not. So I think it's coaching. I think it's a mentality thing with the players who just aren't putting 100% in. And I just think that our expectations aren't high enough. So we, in the profession I work in, we talk about the quiet discrimination of low expectations. And that's what we've reached now. We've got such low expectations. We've actually made it harder for ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, we were always going to lose that. Yeah, fair enough, but try.
Yeah. I think what was disappointing for me was Dave Flanagan in the week build-up before the Benta game. He was talking about our Jekyll and Hyde performances, was what he described. So he was saying that when we play a Rodney Parade, we concede on average 18 points. Away from home, we're conceding over 40. And he talked about it. So they know the issues, they know the problems, they know they have to be better, and then they still put in a performance like that, and that's what really disappoints me.
No, absolutely, and it becomes platitudes after a while, isn't it? It's we know we've got to try better, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. It's
absolutely
soup yesterday, soup tomorrow, but never soup today. Eventually, you've got to sort it out. And this is an anti-Dave Flanagan thing. I think he's doing everything he can with what he's got, but he needs more to be able to do his job.
I agree. We know defence is an issue, and so it proved again. But I tell you what, Gav, our attack is so bad. Considering you got Dave Flanagan there and you got Matt O'Brien there. Now, I want to read you something, right? This is on the URC website. Okay, these are the stats. Where do you think we are ranked out of 16th for attack? So we've got 16 teams league. Where do you think we're ranked?
16th.
Yeah, we are the worst team for attack. So we got the worst attack in the league. That is official. We're ranked 15th for points scored, 15th for tries scored. We're last in the league for offloads. We've only made 73 offloads in the URC. We're 15th for meters gained, 15th for defenders beaten, and we're only 15th for clean breaks. Those are damning stats, aren't they? Our attack simply isn't good enough. Why is it not good enough?
Well, because it's not being coached well enough. It's really simplistic.
It's got to be coaching, isn't it?
Watching our attack, it looks woeful. There's no penetration. There's no patterns. I think of our last 4 or 5 tries, at least 3 of them have been from interceptions.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah. Which is saying something about our attack. There's nothing really being created. And Jared Ross is capable of moments of genius. But other than that, where is that penetration?
I know you wasn't going to talk about it, though, Gav, but I was, funny enough, when I watched the game on Saturday, I was thinking about it. I saw a lack of leadership. I'm gonna take your. I'm gonna steal your thunder this week.
I know. I'm glad you are.
I was wondering. No, but I was wondering where are the leaders now? Because we had Dan Liddy as captain. You'd expect him to step up with all his experience, but I was seeing a lack of leadership.
But he's not that player. I love Dan Liddy. He's a great player, but he's not that. We need somebody who is just going to be bollocking the players, and he isn't that player. You want somebody who's just going to be up and down the line going, what the fucking hell was that? You know,
Yeah, exactly.
and they're not being drawn out, and nobody's Will Reed's decision making again. It's a Will. Sometimes, mate, do the simple thing.
Yeah, we are gonna have to be patient with the kids, and everyone's entitled to make mistakes, but missing touch when we won that penalty, that we could have had a try bonus point. Will we have deserved it? No, but the opportunity was wasted again. And when he missed touch, it was just like,
and
it just summed up the day.
If you're not sure, take about 4 or 5 yards off your kick. I'll just bring it in a bit more. I'm not going to kick the leather off it.
Yeah. You can see what he's trying to do. He tried to get it right in the corner. He did. You could see what he was trying to do, but
I could completely understand that. But it's too much of a roll of the dice there. And what we lack is just like somebody who's just a bit like, right, let's just calm it down. Let's think about what we're doing. Who's doing that? No one.
No, and it was surprising to learn, Gav, as well. Looking at again at the URC website, we are 15th out of 16th for discipline. So we got the second worst discipline in the league. And this definitely won't surprise you. We're ranked 15th for our scrums. We got the second worst scrum in the league. But we didn't need to be told that. I would say Zebra. I what does it tell you? No, I'm just on the Dragons page. It just says that we're ranked 15th, but I reckon it'd be Zebra at a guess. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. So, a very disappointing performance. Like you said, it's not so much the loss for me. It's the perceived lack of effort, the lack of grit, the lack of dog. We're rolling over, and I'm sorry. Look, in the past, we've done it over the years. There's no hiding place in the URC now, and it's just not good enough anymore. If you want to be taken seriously and change people's perceptions, these performances, they just don't cut it anymore.
It was an interesting conversation with Rhiannon Garth Jones, who's been on Blood and Mud and Rock and Roll on various podcasts. She's a Scarlets fan, and she was saying it would, there isn't relegation clearly in the URC. She said, but sometimes it's almost like you'd almost wish there was if you support one of the lower down teams, because you could drop down and win some games, and it'd be nice, like, and she said you must want, as a Dragons fan, be in a position where sometimes you could go into competition, win it comfortably, but have a year of just winning all the time. She was talking from the context of being a Burnley fan when they won the championship convincingly.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and there's part of me that's thinking, that would be all right, if they just dropped us in the league with Portuguese and German teams, and we rom-tomed the title. That'd be quite nice, but something has to change, or something has to change rapidly.
Yeah, we need a reaction this weekend, don't we? But I mean, let's try and figure out why we're so bad on the road. Let's try and be a bit tougher and harder to beat. I don't know, mentality issue. I don't know, but it's not good enough anymore.
But we're up against some of the best players in the world on the weekend.
That's it. It's a very tough league. This is why you got to fight, Gav. This is why you can't slack in this league. There is no hiding place. No. We are playing against World Cup winners and world-class players. Maybe in the Rabo Direct days, the Pro 12, the standard wasn't so high, but now the standard in this league is higher than ever.
Look at who we could potentially be playing against on Saturday. Could be playing against Bundyaki, one of the best centres in the world. We're up against Mark Hansen, one of the best attacking wingers in the world.
I think he's injured. I don't think he's going to be available for this game, which should suit us. Yeah, I think I heard his coach say he'd be available for the week after. But they got good players, this Connacht team. It's going to be so hard to break down. But it is a winnable game. But, they owe it to the fans now on Saturday night to put in a good performance.
Oh, 100%.
So, anyway, that's the Benetton debrief done. Very disappointed. Sorry about that if I sounded a bit negative, but like I said, sometimes I think performances have to be called out, and I think this was one of those performances that needed to be called out. Okay, so it's time for Gav's Gwent Rugby Roundup. Gav, what's been happening?
Well, a lot of rugby, so lots of teams have been playing 2 games over the week in the Gwent side, so we've got lots of results to get through. Newport have assured themselves a playoff semi-final, a home playoff semi-final. And we'll either be playing Cardiff or Ebervale in their home semi-final. Llandovery will play the other. So I think that's going to be, well, very winnable for Newport. I think a Newport Llandovery final is likely, and Newport can win that. So, we could see Newport crowned as Premiership
And just to
champions.
say, that game will be played at Newport Stadium in Spitty. It's not going to be played at Rodney Parade like a lot of people thought. So,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, so if you want tickets, then get yourself sorted quickly, because it's a
Yeah,
much reduced capacity compared
it is.
to Rodney Parade.
Mhm.
Only the one game in the Premiership of Gwent sides. Pontypool lost at home 26-29 to Merthyr after losing against Ebervale last Thursday as well.
Yep.
In the Championship, Bedwas lost 38-41 at home against Glamorgan Wanderers. And Newbridge, important game for Newbridge, but they lost 57-19 away to Ystrad. In terms of promotion, top 5 from the Championship go up into the Premiership next season. So which will be the level below the EDC, and Cross Keys and Newbridge are currently in 4th and 5th. So they
Good
could
stuff.
potentially be up. In Division 1, NSD played 2 games in the last week. So yesterday they beat Nelson 54-30 at home.
Got
And
promoted as well.
yes, indeed. And
Well done.
previous weekend they'd beaten Pontypool United 82-0 at home. So high scoring week for NSD.
Did you see? Sorry, did you see Jason Tuvey's tweet
No,
last
I did
night?
not. No.
So he tweeted a screenshot of saying NSD Division 1 East promoted, and then he's tagged in Dragon Bet Wales. They're a Welsh betting company. He said,
Okay.
"Hey, Dragon Bet Wales, remember you had us as favourites for relegation?" They had NSD down as favourites for relegation. A fair play. Dragon Bet replied, "Got that one wrong, didn't we?" Up the D. So yeah,
Oh, that's
I
good.
enjoyed that one. Yeah, very good. Well done, Mr. Tuvey and NSD.
Also in Division 1, Abergavenny lost 32-46 at home to Nelson. Not a great season for Abergavenny. Bedlinog lost 20-36 at home to Bryn Mawr, who were also promoted. St Gennes beat Risca 49-22. Talywine beat Blaenavon 40-20 at home, and as identified, NSD beat Pontypool United. So in the Division 2, Oakdale lost 19-56 at home to Cumbran. Abtlary Blaen y Gwent won 50-26 against Ask. Croes y Ceiliog beat Caerleon 25-12. Cumbran won 15-6 at home to Gaundifive. Newport High School Old Boys beat Caldicott 50-32. Some high-scoring games this week. And also, it's Oakdale's second game of the week. Pill Harriers beat them 41-24. So in the Division 3, Blaenau beat Fleur-de-Lis 42-13. Abertwsog beat RTB Ebervale 43-8. Abertwsog, what a horrible place to go and play. No offense to Abertwsog, but it is not an easy place to play. Chepstow lost at home 15-33 against Nanty Glow. And Fleur-de-Lis playing 2 games last week beat Abercarn 36-24. So into Division 4, Newport Saracens played 2 games last week. They beat Blackwood Stars 68-19. And in a slightly tighter game, they beat Crumlin 24-17. And in the other game in Div 4, Betus beat Bedwellty 40-26. Just the one game in Division 5. And I can't read my own writing, this is terrible. Hollybush beat Abersachen 31-22. For a person who writes for a living, that's not really ideal. And then and then into Division 6, where we have seen some quite painful days for some teams. So Cumcarn went to Hartridge and lost 108-0.
Oh, poor
I,
guys. Oh,
I
it's
don't
not
know if
nice,
you've
is it?
ever been on the end of a 100-pointer. I've never
I haven't,
conceded.
no.
I've never conceded 100, but I have been in a game that we lost 95-3.
Oh, it's tough. It's really tough, isn't it?
Oh, it's horrific. And I've been in a game where we scored over 100 points, and yeah, it's. And then also similar line, Girlin went to Mago and lost 88-5. Well,
Oh dear.
you know. And Tredegar Ironsides lost 35-12 at home against Derry. So that's the end of the Gwent round up there.
So just to confirm, you actually write down all these results, do you, on pen and paper?
Yes.
Oh, Christ, you're so old school. I thought you were reading them off a bloody phone or iPad, like any normal person would do. I can't believe you actually take time to write out all the results.
It's just because the All Sport Wales thing, there's loads of tabs you have to come in and out of to go through all the
that's
leagues.
true.
And because I want to go through all the leagues, I write it down just so I have them all in one place. Oh
fair
no,
play to
honestly,
you,
you can't see all the walls in my office. I do this from my working from home office, and I've got post-its with stuff stuck everywhere.
oh, right, okay. Yeah.
You know, even
Oh, fair play.
even for that for our end of season award for my club, I've done that on paper as well. I do it. I can't use
I
computers.
write
I'd
it.
like to wonder.
My handwriting is shite. It's
Oh no,
really,
so is
really bad.
mine.
I'd be the same as you. If I wrote stuff down, I'd struggle to read it afterwards. It's so bad. Oh God. Right. Okay. Is there anything else, Gav, that you would like
No,
to
I
mention
think
before we go?
I think we've covered a lot tonight.
We absolutely have. So, okay, I think we'll leave it there this week. Our thanks once again to Enda from Rugby Broadcast and the Pirate Rugby Pod. Go check it out. It's a very good pod. Thank you to him for joining us. Gavin, thank you as always.
No problem.
And thanks to you for listening and supporting us. We'll be back soon. So until next time, it's goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Dragon's Lair podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to us, as it really helps spread the word. You can find us on all the usual social media channels or email us on welshregionalrugbypod@gmail.com. And remember, whatever the question is, rugby is always the answer.
Sports Social Podcast Network.